Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for August 18th, 2025. Well, I hope everyone had a restful weekend. We've got a very interesting week this week with a whole lot of retail earnings coming out and a relatively light economic calendar. And, well, maybe the potential of a Russia-Ukraine deal coming together with a big meeting coming up today to try and push this over the finish line. We'll see if there's an opportunity there. So how about we dig in here and see what happened in the overnight session. First off, if we take a look at Asian markets last night, Asian markets were mostly higher last night, looking pretty good. We've got Australian markets up $20.70 or 0.23%. Hong Kong was lower by 93.22 or 0.37%. We had South Korea down 48.38, 1.50% lower. The Nikkei had a good day, up 336 points or 0.77%. We saw India up 245.65 or 1% higher, and the Shanghai was up 31.25 or 0.85% up on the evening. If we take a look at what's going on in Europe this morning, as Europe is very heavily involved, I think there's going to be maybe up to 7 European leaders at the White House today, but a little bit lower over there in Europe. Right now we've got the DAX down 86.52 or 0.36%. We've got the FTSE down $10.14, 0.11%. And the CAC lower by 57.69 or 0.73%. If we take a look at U.S. futures this morning, I thought I was looking at a different, I was in opposite world. We actually have futures in the red this morning. It seems like for months, it's just been pump it to the pre-market, pump it up, and keep it all green in the pre-market. This morning we are down. Right now, Dow futures down $60 even in the pre-market. We've got S&P 500 futures down $8.75. NASDAQ futures are coming in down $30.75 here at the moment. So nothing major, but just a little bit of pullback showing in the futures this morning. Let's take a look at what we have going on in our bonds today. Now our bonds just a little bit lower here today. 2-year bonds coming in at 3.74%, 10 years at 4.29, and the 30-year bonds coming in at $4.90%, not $4. And then if we take a look at how that's impacting the U.S. dollar, we got the U.S. dollar moving just a little bit higher here this morning. Right now, dollar futures are only up 14 cents, but this is really critical in here if we're going to start seeing that dollar improve in value, is holding on to that little upside trend here in the chart. So watch that carefully on the dollar. Now, as that is going on, we take a look at our precious metals, and interesting enough, we've got gold moving a little bit higher this morning along with the dollar. Gold right now is up $11.90 this morning in the futures, $3,394 an ounce, and silver Also moving a little bit higher here this morning. Silver futures up 22 cents at 38.20 an ounce. Now, while that's going on, we've got copper moving just a little bit lower here this morning. We've got copper down 2 cents. You can see here in COPX. On the mining side, we dropped just a little bit, but it's trying to pick back up. So keep an eye on copper. Platinum futures are just a little bit lower today by $7.10, and palladium also moving a little bit lower here this morning by $1.80 an ounce. So keep an eye on those precious metals. Now, if we take a look at cryptos, a little bit more on the serious side here this morning on the cryptos. IBIT is showing a pretty substantial gap down here this morning as the crypto markets, Bitcoin down $2,468 a coin here this morning. We're going to be testing some trend and support in here on IBIT, so watch that. In Ether, pulling back, still in a very, very bullish upside trend, just resting in here, but it's down 178.44 a coin, or 4% lower here this morning. Bitcoin's down 2.08% this morning, and we're red across the board in the cryptos here today. So we'll want to keep an eye on those, for those, particularly those that are in those crypto markets. If we, let's see, take a look at what's going on in oil this morning, we've got oil just a little bit higher. Let's take a look at USO. USO is trying to bounce up just a tiny little bit. Oil futures up 35 cents here at the moment. 62.32 a barrel. Brent crude is coming in at 66.04 a barrel, and natural gas is showing lower again, down over 11 cents here this morning, falling pretty hard back down to these recent lows. So UNG has been testing all-time lows here in this ETF. Very rough right now on natural gas, so keep an eye on that. Let's take a look. Well, I think that's it. Yeah, that's covering all of those major bases here this morning. So how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at the markets for what they are, not for what we would like them to be. First off, if we take a look at the Dow, you can see we've got a little bit of resistance up here. We gapped above that and set a new record high in the Dow on Friday, and then ended up pulling it back. But I got to tell you, there really isn't anything terribly bearish in that pullback here at all. We're still in a very strong upside trend. This pullback here today, it's going to be the follow through today that makes the difference. If that follow through were to move us lower here on the day, well, that could be a problem, and you can see we have that possibility. If we were to break down below, this area of support in the chart, then we have that opportunity to test this area and maybe even fill this big gap here to the downside. So if those bears were to really get going, that could create a little bit of concern in the market. Once again, I really don't think we're going to get into any major worry in the market unless we break this area of support. If we give that back in the market, then we're going to have some worries and pressures here in the market. Now, if the bulls were to respond back here today, so here again, if we just pull back in here and we bounce right back up off of here, no harm at all in the chart. As a matter of fact, we could rest in this area for a while. with no harm at all, holding on to this price support in the chart. If we hold in that area, then there's every reason to believe we can push right on through back up here and be seeing some new highs in the Dow. So keep an eye on that. If we look at our SPY, although we had a little bit of a pullback in there, it wasn't quite a bearish engulfing, definitely a dark cloud cover type pattern, but it's so minor in here, I don't think it really matters. If we take a look right in here, we've got a little bit of price support in that chart. This resting pullback in here, if we continue in this pattern, really just puts us in a situation where we could just rest and consolidate in here and then still see more upside coming. We've got our upside trend here that we may try to give up here just a little bit and just slide out here in consolidation, because we are overextended here in particularly anything in the tech sector. We're quite overextended. I see there's a story on CNBC this morning that Sam Altman says AI, there's an AI bubble forming. I've got to agree with that. We're so overly optimistic in pricing these stocks at perfection and beyond here that there is a worry of that, I think, in the markets. But every reason to believe those bulls can hold in this area of support. Might have to rest a little bit, but then push right on through. Now, if the bears have anything to say, first thing I would look for is that pullback into that area, pull back into here, and no worries if that's what happens here today. It might be a little bit painful if you're just rushing into trades, but watch that carefully. If the bears continued and we break that down, breaking down through here, or into there, again, pretty good area of support. I don't know that we're going to have any major issues with that unless we give it up. If we give it up and we start giving up an area right in here, if that starts to go, then I think we're probably going to have a little bit of worry coming up. It's still not overly bearish, but a little bit of worry coming up in the SPY. Remember, blue sky above if those bulls can keep pushing. And the same thing is true here in the QQQ. Even if we were to pull back and test this area of support, I don't see that chart as being anywhere close to bearish. We could pull back into here, find that support, and see those bulls push right on through to the upside. Breaking down through that area here is going to raise a little bit of concern in the market. Probably not enough to be truly worrisome breaking down through here. We would just come on back and test some more of these areas of price support and still be quite bullish. If we pulled all the way back into here, I still don't see any major worry coming up in the market. Failing down through these areas, however, would probably raise some concerns out there in the market. But if those bulls have anything to say and we bounce right off of any of these areas and start pushing back up, I think blue sky above is still certainly possible in the Qs. And then if we look at IWM also pulling back just a little bit. We struggled in here just a little bit with IWM. Tried to get something going here in the pre-market. They were popping up here and pulling back, so watch that carefully here. IWM coming back into a pretty good area of price support in here, and if that holds, I see no worries here. Just that resting pullback in here. We would hold on to this upside trending area and push right on through to the upside, and I think that is certainly possible here on the Russell. If the bears were to have anything to say in here, and we were to break beyond this area up in that support area, I think there'd be a little bit of concern maybe coming up in IWM, but no major concern until we break this area here. If we were to push on down through that area of price support, then that's where we would see maybe a little bit of fear coming up in the Russell. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX showing us on Friday, maybe just a little bit of fear popping up in there. Bullish engulfing yesterday or on Friday on that, trying to push back up. But once again, guys, it's really no panic at this point in time. You can see this is a pretty sharp a downtrend right here. So if we were to break above maybe some price resistance here in the VIX, start breaking above that trend, we might have a little bit of concern coming up in here. But remember, we made a new low here. So in order for this to really get going on the bearish side, we're probably going to have a higher low get made here in the VIX in some way, shape, or form to really bring in selling in the market. So watch that carefully. I don't see anything major in a problem here unless we do hold a higher low in there. And I still think there's every reason to believe the way the bulls have been acting, we'll just shake it off like we did PPI numbers, like we did terrible consumer numbers, consumer sentiment numbers on Friday. Just shake it off. Not really care. So watch that carefully here, because if that does occur, I could see us back down here on the bullish side, pushing down through these lows just as easily. Let's take a look at our VIX. We just looked at our VIX. How about we take a look at our T21-22? The T20s in here, we'll want to be keeping a pretty close eye on this. T21-22 pulled back. We're just hovering above the mid-range here on T21-22. And like I said, it really is going to depend on what the follow-through is here today. After that little bit of pullback on Friday, you can see we put a little bit of a hockey stick here on the ice. Hockey stick on the ice means you can score. And that opportunity, if those bulls can get going and shake this off, well, there's every reason to believe they could push on through to the upside and be right back up here, pushing into that bearish reversal zone. And I wouldn't rule that out the way this looks. But if the bears continue this bearish push here this morning, if the bears have anything to say today, well, we want to make sure and recognize the fact that we still have a pretty big opportunity to the downside here on the bears. So watch that carefully today. Our T21 08 percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average. Boy, that pullback in here on Friday, no problem. I really don't see this as any a major concern. You can see there was no panic in this pulling back into this upside trend. We're still holding above that 50% area here in the chart. So if the bull market can find us any energy to the upside and those bulls react, I think there's every reason to believe we could push this right back up, be up here testing towards 60% area in the chart pretty easily. However, if the bears have anything to say in here, and I'm not sure that they do, but if they were to have anything to say, breaking this area here would probably be a little sign that the bears might be gaining a little bit of strength. And of course, if we break down through this area 40%, then maybe some worry would come up in the market. Remember, we'd have to take out that recent low in here to show any major concern in T2108. T2107 also pulled back on Friday, but there's no worry here. T2107 pullback, notice we held above our 45% area. We had broken through up here toward the 50% area. Didn't quite make it. Got this little upside trend going on in here. So every reason, I think, if we get some bullish news in here, that we could push on through to the upside. If the bears were to have anything to say, we still have this support here that could be tested around 45. Breaking that might raise a little bit of worry or concern, but we've got some pretty good support in here around 40. So I don't know if it'd be anything major unless we break down below that area. And our T2101, we've been enjoying a little bit of breadth improvement here. We've been struggling so much with breadth. You want to notice here we have a little bit of a hockey stick in the air. Now, that can mean that we get sent to the penalty box, and we'll want to watch this carefully because we do have a major congestion area here in T2101, and overall we've been moving in this downtrend in here. So remember, if we see the bears push today and we can't get any breadth, that would be bullish. So for example, if the bears are going to push down here just a little bit today, but we don't see that breadth expanding to the upside, I don't know that I would worry too much about it, because if we don't see those bears pick up any energy, no particular worries. If the bulls, however, were to find some energy to push up, we also need to see that breadth expand. It would be worrisome and probably embolden those bears if we try to reverse and push this back up today, but see that breadth start to fall. That can give the bearish side a little bit of an opening to attack. So watch that carefully here in T2101. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar this week, well, not as busy as what we've seen here lately. Not too much going on here. This morning we're going to get a housing market index report. Consensus is looking for that to stay flat at 33. Keep an eye on that. And then we've got bond auctions in here, 3 and 6 month bond auction. Tuesday, housing starts and permits will come out. That'll be the most notable here on the economic calendar. We're going to have some bond auctions and some Fed speak in here, but other than that, no big worries. On Wednesday, we got mortgage applications. We're going to get the Atlanta Fed Business Inflation Expectations Report. We've got a petroleum status. We've got Fed speak in here. Some bond auctions, 20-year will be the most notable. And probably the biggest thing on Tuesday is going to be the FOMC minutes. We can get some volatility out of that, even though, well, I shouldn't say that. There is a possibility with all the pressure that's being placed on the Fed. There is a possibility we could get maybe some surprises in that FOMC minutes report. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Bostic will be speaking. Thursday, we've got Bostic speaking again, our biggest day of economic data with the jobless claims, Philly Fed, PMI composite flash, existing home sales and leading indicators, along with the natural gas report. And if you look on down here, we've got a 30-year TIPS auction, most notable in those bonds to be paying attention to. On Friday, Jerome Powell is going to be speaking along with the Baker Hughes rig count. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. And our earnings calendar, pretty light today, not a whole lot going on. But this week we have, it's a retail theme. We've got Target reporting this week. We've got Walmart reporting this week. There's Home Depot. There's Lowe's. There's Estee Lauder. So kind of the notables here will be kind of a retail theme for this week. If we take a look today, we've got RSKD this morning, FN and PanW here this afternoon. We'll take a quick look here. Whoops. There we go, RSKD. Not much activity in that yet. I don't think this is reported yet this morning because the bid-ask spreads are so wide here. I think it's still waiting for that report. And then this afternoon, FN and PanW will be those notables to be paying attention to here this afternoon. Now, obviously, there are more stocks reporting than that, but most of them are really small cap and really don't have that potential to particularly move the market here. So kind of keep that in mind. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up. so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, clicking that thumbs up button, leaving a brief comment, that helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who takes the time to do that. I do truly, truly appreciate it. And remember, everyone, just that little tiny thing of even leaving an emoji helps an awful lot, because what it shows the YouTube algorithm is that people are engaging with the videos, and so they'll show it to more folks. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to do that. I truly appreciate it. Also want to remind everyone that we still have that offer here. You guys can come and join in with what we do in Right Way Options for 30 days for just $7. Give us a try. So I will leave a link for that in the description below. Thank you, everyone who is already a member and on a trial. Truly, truly appreciate that. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up for today. And remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful in this market. And just remember that anything is possible, particularly when we're elevated as we are. We've got to be a little bit careful here with chasing already extended stocks. But do your own due diligence and be careful to make wise decisions in your trading. Let's take a look at what we've got going on here. First off, some of the semiconductor and computer software kind of companies are doing quite well here, continuing to do well as they have been for a long time. But take a look at STX in here. STX popped back up, nice little resting consolidation. We're trying to hit these all-time highs and see if we can break out here on Seagate. I would watch that carefully. A little bullish action here in the market, and I think that could push right on through and begin that next leg higher here in Seagate. And I'm going to say the same for like WDC. WDC just rested in this nice little consolidation up here, coming back to trend, got nice support. Again, we just need a little bit of a bullish push, and I think we might see that push on through to the upside, and I think that's worth paying attention to. If we take a look at some of the drug makers in here, or kind of defensive sector stock, Procter & Gamble breaking through this downtrend in here. This is trying to come up out of a bottom. Notice we push through that downtrend, trying to hold that higher low. All we need is that little bit of a bullish push, and we might be able to get that to move on higher here in the chart. So if you like taking some of those stocks up out of bottoms, you can see that possibility that we would have maybe this head and shoulders pattern forming here in Procter & Gamble. When we take a look at stocks like J&J just continues to run to the upside. I think this needs a little bit of rest in here, but Johnson & Johnson really been turning around. Things like Merck still trying to come up out of this bottom. I think that's worth paying attention to. It's not quite ready for prime time in here, but particularly if it were to break through this resistance and then rest a little bit, you can see that first higher low kind of coming in there. It is possible that this could rest back in here, and you'd look for that next opportunity for that to pop, but keep an eye on some of those drug makers. Kind of some interesting patterns in there overall. Of course, we'll want to be keeping an eye a little bit of retail this week because of those reports from Home Depot. Now, Home Depot running up into that earnings report. Just a nice, strong run, breaking through some resistance up here. So I would watch that carefully on this little resting pattern in here. We get that earnings report coming in here on the 19th tomorrow, and I think there's every reason to believe that could push on through to the upside. And I'm going to say the same for Lowe's. Watch that carefully. But even things, outside of that, you might want to be watching a few things like here in Macy's trying to break through this resistance. Notice we popped up in here, resting back a little bit. We just need a little bit of bullish energy. We might see that retail start to pick up in here on Macy's. Take a look at Target. Target is coming up on its earnings report. Been resting in this consolidation, little upside trend going on in there. If we can get some bullishness out of those reports here in retail, we might see Target start stretching through to the upside. And then, of course, take a look at Walmart that will be coming in later this week. Had pulled back here pretty strongly. We're up here close to testing all-time highs. So we could be set up pretty good heading into that earnings report for a nice upside move if that report comes in strong. So watch that carefully on Walmart. Other places out there, take a look, GoPro. GoPro, a nice little resting consolidation after this huge popping move to the upside, resting out toward trend. Keep an eye on that. GLW just continues to soar, but we've rested here just a little while. We might be coming back to this trend a bit. Keep an eye on GLW. There is nothing wrong with that. On the big tech side of things, Google had this nice stretch through this resistance up here in the chart. You can see that possibility that Google could be right back up here, busting through all-time highs. Even though they're likely to lose their Google search, it doesn't seem to be bothering anyone in the world of AI. As long as AI does well, everything else is fine. So watch that carefully in here. If that bull can push, I think there's every reason to believe we could see Google go on higher. AMD continues to hold up very, very bullishly. We rested back this week just a little tiny bit, kind of filling in that gap on that big stretch to the upside. So in this rest in here, I think there is that opportunity. If those bulls get going, we might be able to push this right on through that resistance here in the chart. Now, if they can't get it going, I really wouldn't, because of the extension that we've seen. I would watch this area right here carefully. A failure through here could change that sentiment here on AMD pretty quickly. Let's take a look at some things like General Dynamics. We're doing all of this conversation here about ending a war in Ukraine and Russia. Watch that carefully here. General Dynamics has been holding up pretty well. Could easily get that stretch here to the upside on General Dynamics. Certainly Boeing in that aerospace and defense area doing quite well, pushing back through here. Any rest or pullback in this Boeing chart would set up an opportunity here, maybe just a little consolidating move in here. We might push right on through there in Boeing. Keep an eye on that. LMT, Lockheed Martin, has been coming up out of this bottom. Big, strong move down on that earnings report, gapped sharply lower. And as you can see, we're shaking it off and coming back up. So as we push this up here, a little rest in here, I would look for that opportunity. Maybe this gap at least could be filled in Lockheed. So keep an eye on some of those stocks out there. There are a few making some moves. RTX is still holding in this consolidation pattern as well in that aerospace and defense. You might want to take a look, if you don't mind very low-cost stocks in here. Take a look at RIG. RIG breaking through this big downtrend in here. And you can just hear, you know, the theme of this administration, drill, baby, drill. With Transocean in here, I think there may be an opportunity. If we get a little bit of bullishness in here, that could push right on through into the upside there. Take a look at Plug Power. Now, some of the alternative energies, well, let's get that right here. Plug Power has been coming back up. We're rejected in this trend just a little bit, but we're coming right back up in that pattern. Any little rest or consolidation in here, I would be watching for that opportunity for that to maybe hold and then push right back on through to the upside. Worth paying attention to. Now, I know these Cannabis stocks have just been really challenged for a really long time. But boy, we have seen some big moves here in cannabis. MSOS really picking up to the upside. These are real cheapies, I understand, may not be for everyone. I kind of get accused all the time I only show really expensive stocks. But well, when the little ones go, I want to pay attention to those as well. So what I think is notable here is just breaking of some major resistance areas here in the chart. We've got a little bit of gap above that could be filled in here with maybe a little bit more rest in MSOS. But take a look at things like CGC. CGC had a big pop, pulling back, could set up a higher low. Things like Crone trying to pick, whoops, yeah, that's Crone. No, that's corn. There we go. Crone pushing up here in the chart and getting that little resting pullback. Things like the ETF in here on cannabis, Mary Jane, really making some moves here to the upside, pushing through some resistance. So keep an eye on some of those cannabis stocks. They're trying to come around and get something going here. And if you like those little cheap stocks, there's some opportunities coming up in that area. Other places, take a look at like CVX. CVX is up here challenging this major downtrend in the chart. Remember, they've completed their acquisition of Hess, so watch that carefully here for that push. If they can push on through to the upside, I think Nike is something to pay attention to here, banging its head against that resistance in the chart. We can take a look at some of the gambling area. Las Vegas Sands, a very beautiful chart, just resting in here, continuing to climb to the upside. That's worth paying attention to. You got to continue to pay attention to things like UEC really pushing to the upside. Things like BTU still looking pretty good in here. A little resting pullback in here. Now I've got a bias on both UEC and BTU. Really like these charts, so just take that into account. But things like CCJ setting up in here, URA setting up in here, worth paying attention to. Keep an eye on some of these old boring defensive stocks like Altria. Altria really stretched here to the upside, resting in this nice tight consolidation. Nobody apparently wants to sell it after that big move. I'd watch for that next potential move to the upside. Philip Morris, on the other hand, starting to show me a little bit of concern after breaking this trend and resting in here. I see that possibility that could fail on through, but watch that carefully here in case it comes right back. You could keep an eye on Qualcomm, a nice stretch to the upside. Any little rest or consolidation in here could set up that next opportunity. Take a look at some retail, things like Kohl's coming back up here, breaking through up here, little rest, little consolidation, may have some opportunities there in Kohl's. There are so many bullish stocks. Unfortunately, there are quite a few that are also so extended. I would want to stay away from them. I wouldn't want to get involved in those. I would take a look at things, however, like AT&T trying to break this big resistance. Here again, I have a bias on this. I've got a huge profit on this trade, but watch that carefully here on AT&T if that can break through this big old consolidation. I'm actually managing this based on the weekly, so you can see breaking through up here might start that extension on through to the upside here. Take a look at Verizon, good strong dividend payer, breaking the downtrend in here. Little resting pullback could set up an opportunity there. So keep an eye. There are a lot of potential stocks out here showing bullishness, and they are everywhere right now. But that also gives me that sense of hesitation to be really careful not to chase stocks that are already extended to the upside, just in case those bears do have anything to say and we were to push back or just consolidate for a while in the market. And those stocks that are already extended up can be a little bit painful. when they pull back to as the market just rests for a while. So think about that carefully. Remember, everyone, we are in one of the highest areas of vacation times, those last minute vacations coming in. So it's not unusual to see a little bit of rest or a little bit of pullback during this period of time. So kind of keep that in mind as well. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thanks so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. I'll see you right back here bright and early tomorrow morning. As always, I wish you all the very best.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.